If AfterSight podcasts are part of your week, donate today at aftersight.org/donate. AfterSight is a nonprofit, and your support keeps these programs on the air and expands access for people who are blind, have low vision, or need other access to print. Be the reason someone discovers AfterSight this week.
Hello, I'm Kim Wardlow, and I'm your host for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. If you've been listening to episodes recently, you will know that we are in the middle of a series on sports. And so last week we were talking about different team sports. And this week we are talking about aquatic sports. So swimming, kayaking, rowing, those types of things. And how those sports can be done by individuals who are blind or have low vision, any adaptations or techniques that are needed. And our guests today are both from Envision Blind Sports. Jillian Stringfellow is a program director, and Will Rastetter is a swimming coach there. So they are going to be instructing us, giving us some information on aquatic sports and how blind individuals can participate in those sports. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us.
Just briefly, do you want to just say a little bit about what Envision Blind Sports does? It's not just aquatic, it's lots of different things. Mm-hmm. And maybe just expand a little bit on each of your roles or how you came to be with the organization.
Sure. So, I'm Jillian Stringfellow. I'm the program director for Envision Blind Sports. So I oversee and manage every program that runs underneath our organization. Our mission is to provide sport and physical activity to individuals who are blind or visually impaired, to kind of promote that lifelong wellness aspect and piece. We service individuals of all ages. Our largest program is our blind sports camp, where that's the only one that we limit age-wise, and that's 7 to 18, but everything else is open to all ages. It was a nonprofit that was developed back in 2017, but our founder and executive director, Wendy Fagan, has been in blind sports for over 30 years. And Will and I got involved. He can explain his role a lot longer than mine was, but we've been involved way longer since it's been a nonprofit. We were just programming for kids in the area. And then we're like, you know what, we should make this legitimate and provide more opportunities. And so that's when it turned into Envision Blind Sports. And we've been doing something at least once or twice a month since then. So it's really fantastic. We do over 25 different sports and outdoor recreation opportunities with our participants. Like I said, camp is our largest one where we do it all in 1 week. And if we're talking specifically aquatics, we do swimming, we do kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding, tubing. We've done whitewater tubing, we row. So you name it, we do it. And if we haven't done it, please contact us because we want to do it. So that's kind of, the overview of what we offer within Envision.
Great. And how about, Will, you started out as a volunteer, correct?
I did, yes. So I had a pretty awesome and unique kind of opportunity whenever I was just, oh gosh, Jill, I feel like you probably might remember better than me. I was either 12 or 13, something around that. I was really good friends with Wendy Fagan's youngest son, Ryan. And so she one summer had just asked if I could come help out at one of our sports camps. And to be honest, I had really no idea what I was getting into. I had never worked with a blind or visually impaired person before, and never really been exposed to this community in general. And so I was kind of really thrown into the ringer a little bit. And that first summer camp that I did, I just immediately fell in love with it and knew that I really wanted to work with this community kind of for the rest of my life. And it kind of coincided with, I'm a big sports guy. I love athletics. And so to be able to experience and adapt all these sports to these athletes who I consider good friends now is just an awesome opportunity to be able to continue to do, and then also be able to learn. 'Cause, like I said, I was a volunteer for so long. I was the same age group as a lot of our kids that attended these camps and clinics, so I'd had a fun opportunity to be able to participate under a blindfold and get to learn how to participate within these activities and sports as somebody without sight. So it gave me kind of a good learning curve on how to teach, I feel like now. So yeah.
Thank you. So, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions when people, uh, think of different aquatic sports and then they find out you're working with individuals who are blind or low vision that people have or that they're surprised about?
Ooh, I was gonna say I guess I could answer first. I think not necessarily something specific, but I'll never forget one of the first programs that I ever ran for Wendy with Envision. Myself and a coworker, Amanda, we were partnering with a recreation center that was in the area, and they had like an ice skating rink, they had a swimming pool, so we were gonna do like a multi-sport clinic. And so we went in to try to train the staff, like, hey, like this is what we're going to do. This is how you adapt. We were doing multiple things. We were putting them on ice skates. We were doing blind ice hockey, a whole bunch of fun stuff. And I remember the first hand was raised. The question was, well, what are we going to do with them in the pool? And I was like, I don't really understand your question. So I guess it really dawned on me, like, wow, I thought that you would have had more questions, on the ice rink
Yeah.
or any of that. I was like, well, it's in a pool, it's contained. And I think that, you tell people we're doing these really cool, crazy, outdoor water aquatic
Hmm.
activities, and their immediate response is, oh my gosh, is that I didn't even know that you could do that. So it's really nice for, myself and Will and everybody else to be able to like, well, it's just small modifications and we're up and running. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback off of Jillian, I feel like I get a lot of those similar questions of just like how in general. And my usual response is like, I don't really do a whole lot different. Whenever I'm teaching somebody who's blind or visually impaired to whenever I'm teaching somebody who is has full sight. It's a lot of the same techniques. It's maybe just a little bit more verbiage whenever you're actually explaining either the drills or what activity we're doing. It's yeah, really very similar in my opinion. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I could imagine people would, especially if you're out and not in a contained pool, if you're out in a more open body of water, that people would be concerned about people losing direction and things like that. Well, the motto there is fearless, do more. And what does that look like for somebody who's maybe stepping into a pool or getting into a kayak or doing an aquatic sport for the first time?
Yeah, we love our motto, Fearless, Do More at Envision. I think it really encompasses what we're trying to accomplish, whether it is an aquatic sport or if it's any other sport that we're running. We're all about pushing boundaries and pushing barriers, I think, and just trying to get these athletes to experience more and push themselves to a limit. And I think within the aquatic setting, I think it's amazing. Like I'll take camp, for example. We have over 85 athletes that came last year, and they're from all over the country. And we have different backgrounds, different ethnicities. We have inner city kids, we have country kids. And so it's really amazing to put them out on a paddleboard in a lake
Hmm.
and have them understand like where they are and describe, okay, this is how we're going to stand up. And the joy and the experience that they're getting is kind of unmatched. It's one of our favorite days. I think Will could probably attest to that as
Mhm.
well. We also do a really long 4 mile kayak it has a little bit of a current and it
Hmm.
has obstacles. And when we get done, I think that our kids really enjoy it. But I think talking to our volunteers, it's like, wow, these kids were fearless going down, just listening to everything that we had to say at every turn and pushing off of trees. And I think that we just push boundaries, and that doesn't, especially even, I guess, in the water.
Hmm.
hmm Yeah, I think too, water in general is just such a daunting thing to experience because especially for a blind or visually impaired person because it's such a wide open space with kind of
Hmm.
very limited uh, I guess barriers to be able to ground yourself with.
Right.
And so having to be very vocal about where you're at, what you're doing, and kind of like Jill said, the surroundings, even if you're on a big lake, just goes a long way to be able to kind of fear less and do more and focus on the activity rather than where you're at in space. And I think that's something that we kind of really try and hit home for is doesn't necessarily matter where you're at in the water, just know that as long as you're safe, that we can actually be able to do whatever activity we have at hand. And everybody always does so awesome. And like Jill said, it's usually some of our athletes' favorite days is whenever we're out in the water or in the pool, something like that.
Hmm. What are the most common fears that your participants have when it comes to the aquatic sports?
Well, you could, I mean, I could let you answer more of this, but I think one of the things that we see too, especially I can take it from like our kids' perspective, especially I think a lot of our kids aren't taught the proper way to swim. And again, I'll let Will elaborate
Mhm.
on that. And I think our parents have a fear of, wow, like my son or daughter doesn't understand swim strokes or, even staying afloat in the water and being buoyant, all of those things.
Right.
So I think that fear comes a lot from our parents too. But even adults with sight, I mean, I'm from Alabama and I was around water all the time and I learned how to swim, but a lot of people don't have that and don't have access to that.
Yeah, 100%. What Jill said is like it's something that not a lot of people have access to, and it's a very daunting, scary thing to get in. And at the end of the day, our world is mostly made up of water, so we got to be able to give these kids the opportunity to learn how to swim because there's going to be a time in their lives whenever they're going to come in contact with bodies of water and open water, and just being able to be confident in that um, is a tough thing to kind of teach. And so yeah, like Jill said, I think the biggest thing that we see for our athletes is not really having the opportunity throughout their lives to be able to learn these strokes. And a lot of how we teach swimming is visual because, you're laying flat on your stomach, basically,
Hmm.
if you were on land. That's kind of what it would look like or feel like to our athletes. And
I
so being
know.
able to have them get over that fear of, say, you got to get on your stomach and put your face in the water. Is not something that everybody's really eager to jump in and do to, hold their breath for a little while and be in an awkward position that they're not normally in.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it sounds like, and I sort of expected that some of those fears are the same, whether you have full sight, limited sight, no sight, just there's some fears around water for, I think, for lots of people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
How do you encourage kids or participants that are like, well, I'm not very athletic, that feel not confident that they'll be able to be successful or be able to complete the activity?
Cool. Well, I think first off, when it comes to our motto, I mean, we've already talked about it,
Mhm.
but fear less, do more is like, I feel like what we instill, it's like kind of what we embody at Envision Blind Sports. But I also feel, and especially again at camp, but any activity that we're in, you signed up to do this sport with us and we're going to do this sport and we're going to do it to the best of our ability and we'll make accommodations along the way and modifications when we need and we'll make adjustments. A lot of us have adaptive physical education or physical activity backgrounds and so we adapt on the fly. And so I think that when people meet us, we're really intense and super hardcore. I won't lie to you. Like, this is what we're doing today, and we're gonna, we have pushed the limits 1,000 times, and I'll never take that for granted because I think what it does for our athletes is amazing because they don't come to us and say, no, 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 no. They're like, okay, I trust you. Like, let's do it. And I think that's a really great community that we've built at Envision. Is we have a really solid group of volunteers, and we've trained everybody. In whatever aspect that we're doing. And so I think that we haven't really gotten a lot of that. And if we have, it's a lot even from parents too. That's like, wow, well, I'm going to send my son and daughter to camp, but I don't want them, or I don't know how I feel about doing this sport, and this
Hmm.
sport. So it takes a little bit of conversation, a little bit of, hey, watch some of these videos. I'll talk you through it. This is what we do. And then when they see the joy and talk to their kid or, right after camp, then they're like, oh, okay, this is for real. And we want to continue to do this.
I was gonna say too, like I think after, so many years of us doing this, obviously we get a lot of kids that come back, and so being able to build that rapport each year, kind of helps, I don't know, me as a coach specifically to be able to more generalize each instruction, I guess, or each time I'm coaching with whatever group we are. And then say if we do have a new camper or a new kid, within that group, I can kind of like pull aside and individualize whatever tweaks they need specifically. So that's been kind of nice throughout the years to have all of these kids returning to be able to build their confidence year in and year out, as well as gaining their skills, and having them fear less each year they come.
Yeah, and that sounds like the definition of a win can really change for each person. It's not just, well, I won this race, or we were the first to to get to the end of the kayak route or something. But there's lots of different wins that participants might have, just depending where they're at.
Yeah.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about swimming. Uh, Will, so when you start with somebody who's a brand new swimmer, can you just kind of walk us through what you would do in some of those steps, initial steps?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I feel like I can sometimes get laughed at for with other volunteers that I like to do is before we even get in the water, I like to have everybody sit on the side of the pool, and just learn how to control your breath. Holding your breath for a long period of time or for a duration of time, in kind of different interval settings, just so you can get comfortable with having, for whenever your face is in the water, you're not also adding like the tactual feeling of the cold water on your face, as well as the feeling of not being able to breathe. You're kind of already gutting out one of those steps. And so then you can kind of build off of that. You've hold your breath, then we'll put your face into the water after that and blow bubbles while you're sitting on the side of the wall. And then Jillian knows I like to play this game of while you have your face out of the water, you get to still kind of breathe, but you hold on to the wall, and we work all on kicking, stationary kicking, where you're just getting comfortable moving your legs throughout the ball. Throughout the water, as well as keeping like the correct body positioning, because your stomach is still parallel with the ground, when you're doing that. And then slowly you add the face into the water, holding your breath, and then slowly extending your arms further out away from the wall. So then after that, all we have to do is let go of the wall and start adding the arms, doing windmill motions. And so definitely kind of break it down step by step, as little as possible to the whole thing in general. And I mean, Jillian knows it kind of has taken different forms each year, and it depends on which age group we're really working with, how intense we can get, or how small we need to go of, hey, today let's just focus on getting our faces in the water and being comfortable in this setting of a big open space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine there would be some differences if you're working with adults, older kids, younger kids.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got our really, really little ones who are, obviously still in life jackets and or floaties or waist belts or waist flotation devices,
Mm-hmm.
all the way to kids who have participated in their schools' swim teams, who know each four strokes, are fully confident in the water. So it's a definitely wide variety. But I feel like my goal every year at camp is to at least teach one kid how to swim, independently without flotation devices, or at least take a step away from what their knowledge was before they arrived at camp, which I feel like is usually pretty successful, because getting, like, I guess those kids, or like the little ones in general, into water is usually pretty easy. They're usually pretty stoked to
Yeah.
get active with some swimming.
Yeah.
So
They're ready to blow bubbles.
yes,
Adults
for
maybe not
sure.
as much, but the little kids do.
Yeah.
Well, and then do you work as you are working with kids that have returned, or as you said, some of them are on the swim teams in their schools, working with them on refining their strokes, on endurance, on speed, those types of things as well?
Yeah, a lot of what I focus on, because we don't have necessarily like ton of time, to like get down to the nitty gritty, of say like an actual long form type of practice,
Mm-hmm.
of like building endurance. It's more so stroke technique, and being able to not only perfect freestyle, that's usually the main thing we focus on,
Hmm.
but then these guys and gals that are, now in high school or middle school who have been with us for a while, a lot of times once we finish our progression of learning whatever we are that day, they'll come to me and be like, "Oh, can I learn how to do backstroke or breaststroke or butterfly?" And then we can kind of refine those strokes and kind of add that to their repertoire of, "Hey, if I want to, I can try out for a swim team. All I need to do is like learn these or refine these new strokes as well as kind of learn stroke count to know how I'm getting or how long it takes me to get from one side to the other so somebody doesn't have to stop me to turn around kind of thing."
Hmm. And how do you teach the orientation to stay oriented in the lane and to safely approach the wall and make turns?
Yeah, again, that kind of varies a lot too, depending on obviously their vision as well as confidence of each individual. But I guess starting from kind of the basics, if it's somebody who, say, is a B1 totally blind athlete, we will have, and like, say, I guess a younger athlete, we'll have a volunteer directly out in front of them. So uh, they will be swimming backwards as the athlete is swimming into them.
Hmm.
So, say each stroke they're taking, they can feel the volunteer's hand, and all they need to do is just reach out forward and feel that hand in front of them. And then slowly, as you progress, get older, you start to take away that hand, and then you start to learn how wide the lane line is. And trying to keep in a direct, straight of motion. It's just kind of like for our athletes who are learning to use a cane for the first time, how do you keep in a straight line? Same thing, just kind of a lot of practice, have those barriers, and know when you're starting to veer, when you need to veer back as well. And swimming is so nice, I guess, in the sense of a lap pool, as having those lanes. You're confined into a pretty small space, so uh, it's pretty easy to redirect yourself whenever you do start to veer off because you'll have that lane line to tell you, "Hey, I need to move left," or, "Hey, need to start moving more right."
Right. Yeah, very different than if you're in a lake or an open body of water.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes, that.
Kim, I was going to say we also have at each, especially at camp, but in any swim clinic that Will runs or that we're a part of, we also have tappers
Oh,
at the
okay.
end of the
Hmm.
lanes, so that when they get close to the ends, when they're one like two strokes away, we tap them on the shoulder so they know that they're coming to the end, so that they can turn and go back to the end. So Will has that support outside of the pool as well as in the pool for whichever depending on if they're a B1 athlete to a B3 athlete.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would be very helpful. Is there a common mistake that you see a lot, more common for participants that you see kind of more generally, or is it just very individualized?
I would say it's definitely more individualized, but a very common mistake I do see is with breathing. A
Hmm.
lot of kids and athletes like to, whenever they breathe, lift their head straight up. Kind of if you're thinking
Mm,
of the stroke or the butterfly stroke,
right.
how you breathe straight forward. It's not as effective if you're swimming pretty much any other stroke. It's definitely a lot more beneficial, and you're using a lot less resistance if you're breathing just to the side. So I feel like that's a big thing we try and focus on because um, it also kind of, whenever you lift your head up like that, more likely to swallow water, potentially go down the wrong pipe, and then we have to stop, let out the cough. But then also that kind of lifting your head straight up can also kind of make you veer and run into, like, then you'll have those running into lane line problems, and then your stroke fluency is kind of all cut off as well. So definitely the breathing to the side is a big thing that I like to preach for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty key skill for most of the strokes.
Hmm.
If somebody is wanting to get started, is there like a first week plan you'd recommend, or just they need to find a coach to work with, a trainer to work with, uh, to help them get
Yeah,
started?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I would recommend kind of even what I did to start my swim career was just go take swim lessons. I mean, doesn't matter what your vision level is, go to your local YMCA, local pool, whatever it is, and sign up for swim classes. Even if it's, I don't know, what do they call them? Those little like minnow shark
Yeah.
Hmm.
classes, those types of
Right.
things, do it. Always sign your kid up for those types of things because, kind of like I said at the beginning of this conversation, the world is made up of mostly water. So you're going to be in it at some point in your life, and it's good to have at least the skills in your bag to be able to pull out and have that confidence.
I think too, I think people listen to this podcast and it's like, oh, it sounds so simple to go to the YMCA, but Will's correct. I know that there's a fear of, well, they don't understand how to teach someone who may have a visual impairment
Right.
or who is blind. I think that's probably a common misconception, but you'd be surprised how many parks and rec, how many swim programs, how many gyms do have someone who's adapted there. But I can also tell you there's organizations, and we're happy to do it, but there's also other organizations out there that are happy to help train. It's part of what we do at Envision Blind Sports is, we actually have a young man who joined his swim team, and the coaches didn't understand how to get him to participate in the meet. And so, you know, our boss went up there and worked with the swim coach and things like that. So there's a lot of or a decent amount of blind sports organizations or coaches like Will out there that are willing to kind of help some of these swim coaches that have probably never worked with someone who's blind or visually impaired before. So it's kind of a similar fix. So if that's something someone's looking for, I know there's some fear behind working with someone who may not understands the adaptations to provide, but
Right.
there's a lot of resources out there to kind of educate these people. And like Will said, it's, mostly, I don't pretend to be a swim coach. That's not my expertise. I run all of our other programs. I rely on Will to teach the proper swimming strokes and all of that. And so that's all it takes. And we can help provide kind of like that blind aspect as far as accommodations are concerned.
Yeah. And so it sounds like kids can really take this and what they've learned outside of their experience at camp and into their schools. And I would imagine if you've learned to swim and you've felt like you've gained some confidence and accomplished something that could carry over into other things too. I don't know if kids when they come back ever share stories with you about that learning to swim helped them feel confident in other areas of their life.
Yeah, and I was going to say Will probably has some specific stories too, but I mean, even outside of aquatics, but within aquatics and swimming, it's part of what we do at Envision is like empowerment and advocacy. And, we expose these individuals, even our adults, we try to expose them to as much as possible. So my hope is they find one thing that they love. And if that thing is swimming, and, we had a young man that went back to his school and says, I want to join the swim team. And he felt empowered to do so and confident in his skills. It's a really great thing because now he has more confidence at school and he's, there's now his mom's going to all of his swim meets. Like it's a really great thing for them to find and be more active. Like what we do, I love what we do and I love what we provide. But the fact that he can get it all the time in his community and be a part of his school is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think too, to add on top of obviously it opening the doors to be able to participate in athletics within your schools and stuff. I know growing up, I was a very active kid. I had active friends. And so a lot of times, what we would do in our rec leisure time would be different sports or swimming, for example. We would go to our local pool or, we would go, for example, to the golf course or something like that. And so being able to give our athletes access to not only our uh, sports or competitive sports, but also to be able to do this stuff in their rec leisure time and enjoy it as a hobby rather than a competition, you know?
Hmm. Well, and that really builds community where they're a part of their community and don't feel left out because of their vision loss. They,
Yeah.
if they
I think
know
I
if
actually
they
have
know how the adaptations need to be, and I mean they may need to do
Yep.
some education or
yeah.
their parents,
Yep.
but that can happen.
Mhm. Yeah, this isn't, I guess, specific to aquatic sports, but we just did a golf clinic a few months ago
Hmm.
before the winter, and one of our athletes in the group made a funny comment to me. we were like, I don't know, 3 or 4 holes in, and he just kind of like tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, I kind of get why people do this. Like he just like it was never in his wheelhouse of like activities that like he could do and like he could access to himself, and just to have him be like, oh, like I can do this.
Hmm.
It's always cool to like have those experiences and be able to like share those with our athletes.
Yeah. Well, let's switch over to kayaking and canoeing and talk about what you do there and how what a kayaking day might look like or a canoeing day might look like.
Yeah, so we are big on outdoor recreation and water sports, and kayaking and canoeing are two things that we do quite frequently within camp and then another clinic throughout the year. So we at Envision, so we don't have a building, we don't, we're a gym and people come or a lake and things like that. So we're really big on making partnerships and working with the community and educating, like I said previously. And so we work with a lot of parks and rec. For paddleboarding, we work with a guy who has his own paddleboarding company. So we reach out to those local organizations to provide some of these experiences. Um, with kayaking, we have a really great partnership with like Pennsylvania Parks and Rec staff, and they do this for free. And we meet them out on a lake, and we teach the kids about the boat and the oar and how to properly put it in the water, and just getting them out in that body of water. And for our little dudes, we throw them in a canoe or a kayak with us. But for a lot of our older kids, we like to put them, if it's like a larger lake body of water, we'll
Hmm.
put them in their single kayak and just give them, specific directions and tips and tricks on, where to put their hands and things like that. But a lot starts off land first, and then we put them in the boats and they kind of get out there. Like I said earlier, one of my favorite things that we do, and it's probably one of the more, I wouldn't say dangerous things that we do at camp, but it is dangerous, I guess, in a way, is we do a 4 mile kayak down it's a really great river, but there's obviously obstacles and you can't help when the current's higher or
Right.
lower or trees fall down and stuff. And so it really pushes my volunteers to the limit with communication, but it is so empowering for everybody involved. And it's great because I think it's more exciting than getting out in the lake, which I love. Kayaking in the lake, very calming. You can rest, relax. But when you're on the river, you're high alert at all times and kind of, paddling against the current. So,
And how do you teach that communication? Because that would be so important to be able to communicate between um, kayaks or canoes to each other. So, what participants would be listening for, what they would reply. If you're trying to communicate, especially if you're on a river and it's not just floating along and smooth, and then they're dealing with
yeah.
different obstacles or water conditions.
hmm Well, I will say that first, and I learned a lesson a long time ago when we were looking, we're a volunteer-based organization,
Hmm.
and people sign up to volunteer and then they get out there and I'm like, wow, you can't kayak. So what
Why did
so
you
we learned,
volunteer to do this?
why are you here? Yeah. So we've had, it's a learning
Yeah.
process. And but I will say, one of the great things that we're blessed at Envision is I have top tier volunteers. I'm sure every organization says that, but I have adapted PE teachers. I have O&M specialists. I have teachers of the visually impaired. I mean, I have OTs and PTs, and they just come to us and they're so excited and they're sport oriented. And so, one, that's really great for us because they already know how to adapt and how to describe for individuals who are
Hmm.
blind and visually impaired. But outside of that, I think that we work a lot on not over talking, but giving what they need and try to experience it. And I think, Will can attest to a lot of this as well. And each athlete is different. And we learn that when we get them on the water. And so most of the time, it's like a 1-to-2 ratio, making sure depending on the vision level of the athlete,
Hmm.
if they have a hearing impairment. On top of that, we have a young lady who we, have kind of figured out with her, she needs to follow. She can see, the person if they're so far in front of her. So we put her in her own kayak and she gets a couple of cues from a person behind her, but she's following along and watching the person in front of her because she can see the shape of them. So it kind of depends, as far as cues are concerned. We talk about, back paddling and paddling forward. We let them kind of experience that. But again, I think it really truly does depend on the actual athlete and what their vision level is like. Because,
Hmm.
some of them see worse when it's bright outside. Some of them
Right.
have problem with transitioning and we're under trees and so it depends on what the lighting is, especially for some, or peripherally or central vision, and we try to work with that as well. If we have an athlete who has better peripheral, we might put someone on the side of them and kind of guide them that way as well. But I would say it definitely depends on athlete specifics for sure.
Yeah, and I think to also add on top of that too, I know you had mentioned this, Jillian, before you jump into a kayak in general, just making sure that um, whoever is getting in understands, the paddle cues like outside of the water. Like when we say row forward, like what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that feel like? So we can kind of get hands-on, do hand over hand type practice before we get in the water, just kind of throw them using these directional cues as well.
Mm-hmm. Are family members at the camps as well, or just the kids?
So at camp, it's just our kids. We actually don't allow parents to come because we feel like it kind of hinders their experience, so to speak. They can't just be kids without their parents
Right.
around. But we do, outside of camp, we open a lot of our camps and clinics or clinics and sport outings to family members as well. Like when we kayak, I actually make it a family event. When we ski, sometimes we make it a family event as well. We're obviously providing the guide, but our families are kind of near. And the one thing that I've heard from that is a lot of our families, especially for our younger kids, but really enjoy doing something together, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to adapt skiing or they didn't know how to adapt with kayaking and they were scared to take their family member. We provide that, but I think we're a really great community. And as far as providing every opportunity for families, we have a lot of sighted siblings that want to come and hang out with their sibling and
Sure.
do Envision Blind Sports stuff. So, yeah, outside of camp, we really do encourage a lot of family members, unless it's sport specific, like I said, but a lot of outdoor recreation stuff, we invite families
And
to make it like a family event.
are there ever issues where you feel like maybe with good intention, they're just maybe they have some fears, the parents have some fears that they're a little overprotective or taking over or providing maybe more help where their child, if they were given a little bit more independence, they might make a mistake, but they probably, they would learn from that.
Right. I tell my parents all the time that call about camp, I am not a parent yet. And I do not have a child with a visual impairment. So I can't sit here and say, oh, I know exactly how you're feeling because I don't. But, talking, Wendy Fagan, our executive director, is a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes talking to her makes them feel better. But I think that's a lot of what we see is just once the parents, like I invite them to come to clinics throughout the year to even watch their child to see how we're adapting things and who we are as people. And I think it really, um, makes them a lot more comfortable with us. Because sending your 7-year-old who has a visual impairment or is totally blind to a week-long camp with people you don't know is probably pretty
Mm-hmm.
scary. But we really encourage them to come and watch and participate because I think there is a lot of fear. You get that diagnosis when they're little of they have a visual impairment, they're going to be blind. And you have all of these other barriers that you're tackling within school with it, all getting O&M services, like all of these things. And I think that sports and physical activity was really never in the forefront of their minds. And so when we come along, they're like sports, like that's not what we're thinking about in our household. And so I think it's really opened up. It's been really great to connect with our families and them have like almost that aha moment where they're like, oh, I get it. Like this is fantastic.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about your rowing program. And does that start indoors rather than actually?
Yeah, so yeah, we've done it recently. So we actually work with Three Rivers Adapted Rowing. It's in downtown Pittsburgh. This year we did it again. It had been a couple years since we have done it. We actually have a contact there who's fantastic, and they're actually wanting to get more people who are visually impaired involved in their program. But yeah, they start indoors with their ergs. They start upstairs with actual rowing machines like the ones you see at the gym to get to
Oh, sure.
understand
Yeah.
like the movements, which is great. And the kids love it and they race. And our athletes, like even of all ages, we
Yeah.
had, I think our oldest at that event was in their 60s.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, they get upstairs and they're rowing so they understand the motion and how far they're going and things like that. And then they take them down to like the lower part of the boathouse. And it's like these ergs that have the seats and the actual oars in them. and has the mimics the water, and they sit in there and they work on the commands. So there's, the pilot in the front where they give the actual commands. It's actually a fantastic sport for individuals who are blind and visually impaired because it's very rhythmic and it has very specific instructions and descriptions for it. So you say one thing and then they command, and then they throw them in the boats and they get out there as a team and work together. And it was great. We actually had a really good experience this summer with them, and we got them to go up and down the Allegheny.
Oh, wow. How fun.
Hmm. Hmm.
Are there additional cues or different cues that are given if you're not relying on vision, or is it the same?
No, it's the same. That's what I learned too. Again, rowing was not ever my expertise, and that's why we love working with Three Rivers Adaptive Rowing. No, it is the same. A lot of what they do is just giving some of those corrections. Like sometimes when you push like the pulling your knees and pushing your arms out at the same time is kind
Mhm.
of a hard concept. So that's why they work on that within the boathouse. But then also sometimes, your paddle or your oar gets like flipped a little bit. And so
Right.
giving them a commands, but no, it's the exact same one. And then we're on a boat next to them and they're giving commands with like a big megaphone, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I know I did this, gosh, a number of years ago, and I learned to row with all of our athletes. Like we did it
Hmm.
seamlessly together. I didn't have a
Hmm.
separate conversation or anything, and it was all the same instruction.
So then, do you have lots of volunteers on rowing days? What role do they play? I know, Will, you were a volunteer in different aspects. So was rowing one of the sports that you volunteered with?
Yeah, I did it a number of years ago. Unfortunately, I didn't do it this past summer, but luckily being a volunteer, I mean, um, Wendy and Jillian kind of open it up to all of us, whatever activity we're doing or whatever clinic we're running. They really open it up to all of us to be able to come in and help to learn, as well as teach after. So there's always a portion as a volunteer where we're getting instructed of good ways to teach our athletes, as well as like learning the sport from our coaches in general. And then from there, we're able to relay that information to our athletes. So I can say I have learned an incredible amount of different things from or different sports, activities, whatever it may be, purely because of Envision. So it's not only does it help our blind and visually impaired athletes, it definitely helps our volunteers as well.
That's great. So if folks have this initial clinic, then if they come back, is there a path of progression for rowing?
Yeah, so again, we at Envision, we're kind of more about exposure, and we do, like I said, swim. We do swim clinics throughout the year and a couple of kayakings. But when it comes to some of these, like rowing and paddleboarding and things like that, what's really great about working with Three Rivers Adaptive Rowing is that this is what they do. That's the only thing they do, right? They row constantly. They're outgoing. They're working on their teams. They're working on, um, getting in the water a lot and all of that. So if it's been really great, we develop these partnerships. So, for example, Maureen is the lady at Three Rivers Adapted Rowing. We're in contact now. So, whenever they have experiences outside of us doing something with Envision, I pass that along to all of our athletes. Um, we have a couple of athletes that go to them regularly. And so they kind of progress with their team. And especially because obviously rowing is their sport and what
Right.
they do, we're kind of here to offer those experiences based on, hey, like, we went to a rock climbing place the other day and they're doing some adaptive climbing. So we're also about spreading community awareness, to get some of more of those experiences. And so, yeah, they have a full calendar's worth at rowing of, getting on a team and working on skills. And they have multiple coaches to kind of help towards that progression, if that's a sport that they want to kind of continue to do and work at.
Yeah. So that sounds like that's sort of a great thing for folks that participate in your programs. It's a way for them to try different sports and see what they
Mhm.
like and learn. And then if they want to continue on, either you've already connected them with an
Right.
organization, or you can connect them with an organization if they want to continue.
Yep.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you providing so much information for us and on the aquatic sports, because I know, like you said, people like to get out in the water They're curious about it. Just some takeaways. What's one safety habit you would want everybody to adopt?
And say, Will, you're the swim coach. I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I was always told, always growing up as a kid, if you're getting in the water, never do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure there's always somebody there with you. Even to this day, as a 25, almost 26-year-old, I don't know the last time I was ever in water by myself. So just always having that extra someone there to make sure, and God forbid something go wrong, there's somebody there to either save you or get help real quick. Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be my best advice.
yeah. What's a confidence tip that translates across those different sports?
Ooh, a confidence tip. I think it's just in general. I think that I think mm, it's hard for me to pick just aquatics. I feel like what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing across all
Yeah,
sports is pretty empowering, regardless of what you're doing. And I think we see it every day. It's just like try it, do it, because I think that that leads to confidence. And I think that's what we see the most as they come and they're like, well, I can't do it. My PE teacher said I can't do it. The lady at the gym said I can't do it. And I just that's our biggest advice is just try it, because then when our athletes actually do it and succeed
mm-hmm.
their own expectations and excel, it is such a confidence booster for them, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, specific to aquatics, also speaking from experience, it's a lot of times such an individualized thing. And so for them to be able to say, like, oh, I'm doing this completely on my own and progressing to being by myself and doing this is just such a huge confidence booster for them. And I love seeing that because then, like, say, for example, the next year that they come, they'll be like, oh, this is what I learned. Like, look at how well I can do it now. What I've learned over this past year. So that's always really a cool confidence booster.
Is there a moment or an experience that you can think of that you just thought, this is why we do this? This is why Envision exists.
Ooh,
I don't know if it's
there's
possible to choose one thing.
To choose
there's
one,
a
there's a lot.
lot. There is a lot. Um, I I was going to say I have one that's not really aquatics related. I feel like I've seen, throughout the almost 9 years that I've been with the organization, I've seen a lot, but we had this instance. We had a clinic and we did a high ropes course one time, and we had this athlete and she struggled with confidence. She was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
totally blind. And she was constantly, she's very anxious and, just not comfortable in her own skin and really feeling very confident, like I said. And she was on this really hard part of a high ropes course where she had to jump off of a ledge, swing midair by herself, and then in front of her, she would grab onto a rope. Right,
Oh,
this like
wow.
big cargo net. I know it sounds insane. We were safe, I
Yeah.
promise. But at that time, her dad happened to get there because it was towards the end of the course. And her dad shows up and just like stood there and watched her in awe and was like, I never knew. He was like almost in tears because he's like, I just never could have even imagined that this was possible. So it's moments like that when these athletes blurt out, like Will said, like, wow, like this is so cool. I couldn't believe I did this. Or when the parents, just get it. It's life changing to experience sometimes. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know at the end of each of our sports camps, at the end of the week, all the parents kind of reconvene and we have kind of a big ceremony at the end to congratulate all of our athletes and just recognize everybody that participated. And talking with the parents like afterwards and exactly like Jill said, just telling them like everything we did that week, showing them the pictures, all the videos, everybody's like mouths are just like dropped like wide open, like they could catch flies. We're like my kid did that. Like that's always so rewarding. It's like, yeah, like you can get them to do anything you need or want. Just give them the confidence to do it and they're there.
If folks want to learn more about Envision Blind Sports, how do they find you and contact you?
Yeah, so we have a website, envisionblindsports.org, so they can go there and look at all the amazing things and the upcoming things that we're doing, whether it's a clinic, a camp, a fundraiser, all of that. We, like I said, are a volunteer-based organization. We have an annual golf outing where we raise funds and we participate in the Pittsburgh Marathon, but we're always taking donations to kind of help alleviate the costs for, all the craziness that we do throughout the year and have it more affordable for our athletes. But you can also reach out to like myself specifically. So it's just my name, Jay Stringfellow at envisionblindsports.org, and ask any questions that you want.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. And I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot about aquatic sports. And hopefully this will encourage all of you out there just to try something. I think that's come up over and over in our conversations of just give something a try and see if you like it, see if you want to continue. And it could really build some confidence and might even change your life. Who knows? So encourage folks to do that. Next week, we're getting out of the water. We're going to be doing martial arts and talk about martial arts and some wrestling too. So please come back and listen to that episode as well. As always, I hope that the information Jillian and Will have provided to you today helps you to navigate your life with vision loss. Thanks.
If AfterSight podcasts are part of your week, donate today at aftersight.org/donate. AfterSight is a nonprofit, and your support keeps these programs on the air and expands access for people who are blind, have low vision, or need other access to print. Be the reason someone discovers AfterSight this week.